guest today is going across the desk to join us on Across the Fence. Today we're talking with a familiar face on this channel, WCAX's morning anchor, John McMahon. His career has taken him from the West Coast in Southern Oregon to Vermont and his native New England and a few other places in between. We get a look behind the curtain, or behind the camera, we should say, about what it takes to work as a morning anchor and what it means to be a local journalist. Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. You just watched him sign off the noontime news about 30 seconds ago, and he's traveled about 20 feet to be with us as a guest this afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome my colleague, WCAX's John McMahon, to our program. John, happy to have you.
Happy to be here, thank you.
And as I mentioned a minute ago, you're from New England originally. Where was that?
I grew up in the South Shore, Massachusetts, Pembroke, Massachusetts, so it's about 35, 40 minutes south of Boston. Loved growing up there. Absolutely.
And what made you interested in becoming a local journalist?
I kind of tripped and fell into it. I always knew I wanted to do journalism, especially where I went to school at Quinnipiac University. It was a big funnel for sports journalists, for ESPN and NBC Sports are headquartered in Connecticut. So I always thought maybe I'd want to do that, and my parents were avid news watchers. So I was always kind of on this pipeline, but it was definitely our student media there that really got me into it.
Sure, and you decided sports wasn't for you to cover?
No. I love sports, love watching sports, of course. But I was an intern at CBS Sports, and I think I realized that it's not for me. I think I'd much rather just watch.
Absolutely, yeah. Enjoy the game that way.
Yeah.
And your first job was in Medford, Oregon, which is obviously a ways away from your New England childhood home. What was it like to start your first kind of adult job so far from home? So
it was definitely different. That's the best way I can put it. It was the height of COVID. This is March or April of 2020. And, we were just trying to figure out, just blasting off applications to jobs, and Medford came up. It was a morning anchor job. It's a relatively smaller market than this one. And it was just great. I got in my car. My dad drove out there. And it was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful, beautiful place to live. It was a great place to kind of, dig my feet into and start my career. And I loved it. I really loved that job.
Sure. And how long did you work there?
I was there just over 2 years. It was March or the summer of 2020 to like 2022, right around Christmas or Thanksgiving. So it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And how did you get from Oregon to here in Vermont for work?
Yeah, absolutely. So as things kind of rounded out there, I took a job in Iowa in the Midwest, in Cedar Rapids. Another great experience as well. But then I saw this job come up, and I had to apply for it. I actually had WCAX in my sights, even from the beginning. I think I was a little out of my rights there to try to apply to it, especially out of college. But I got a hold of our news director, Roger Garrity, and we got cooking, and I got here.
All right. And is there anything you miss about your past stations?
Oregon is uniquely a beautiful state. It was great to get into work, get into the office, but one of the best parts of living there was when you're out of work, there was so much stuff to do. There was hiking. I could drive to a mountain in 20 minutes and just, go run or hike around there, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful state to live in.
And this interview is well timed because you've been working and living in Vermont for almost exactly a year now. So how's it been treating you?
It's been great. It's been great to be back. Growing up, this is ages ago now. This is 2000, 2002. My family used to go to Stowe, and we used to love doing the bike path there, or now it's the recreation path. And it was just we fell in love going there forever. And I always, especially just throughout New England as well, of course, with New Hampshire and Maine, just love kind of traveling around and hitting some outdoor spots.
And have you been able to do that a good amount since living here?
I think so, yeah. No, actually, I've headed to Maine. I've been home a bunch, as now especially there's no more airports and plane trips to go home, and it's a little bit easier, especially around the holidays as well. So it's definitely a welcome thing for me, but also my mom. So it's great.
Absolutely. And since starting your career, you've been a morning anchor and worked in the mornings. And so what are your responsibilities like that early in the morning, and what do you do before going on camera?
Well, the first thing is, especially when you start this job, is just getting up. It's definitely a stark contrast to when you're in college and you can roll in, to a recorded student newscast late or anything else. Like this is very much, you have to be up and at it and ready to go, especially like more mentally awake and ready to work.
What time do you get up?
I would like to say I get up at 2. I probably get out of bed at like 2:30. I'll hop in the shower and head here, and I'm usually in here at 3:30 or 3:40, depending on the day. So
Who's counting?
Who's counting? But yeah, definitely getting up is the kind of the first step, but then just kind of hitting the ground running when you get to work and going through the rundown. So.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about that process. What do you look at before you go on camera?
Yeah. Well, typically I come in, the morning show is being stacked by our producer, and it's a lot of it is writing your bumps and your teases. If there's stories, we're going to pick up the slack and write those as well. Do that. Of course, breaking news comes in. That really is an all hands on deck effort for everybody to get after and get in the show. And there's a lot of stuff on the fly and just things you need to think about as far as your mannerisms, and if the story is happy, you be happy. If it's you would watch your tone, especially with certain things. But yeah, it's definitely every day is different, and I think that's great. I'm not working in an office, which I think I take for granted sometimes, but I definitely love that part of the job.
And you've been working mornings for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a morning person?
Yes, yeah. I think the curse of the morning show follows you into the weekend. And I say that because there's a lot of times on Saturdays where I'll be waking up a little bit later, but probably still around 4:45, 5. So it sticks around.
Sure, no rest for you.
No.
And a lot of people will see local news as a really important sense or source of information for its viewers. Do you feel kind of a sense of duty for the people that you're serving?
Yeah, and I don't want to overstate that either. I mean, I think a lot of our job is, especially in the morning show, is a little lighter and fun, but it is also our responsibility to inform the public, especially with things like inclement weather, and especially in Vermont, for example, flooding. So I mean, that's a big matter of people's safety and where to go and to not to go, and that stuff is important.
And you touched on this a little a moment ago, but other than being able to read a prompter, what do you think
Yeah.
are the hallmarks of a good anchor in your experience?
You always want to follow that rule of you want to be relatable. You have to think that you're being invited into somebody's house. You don't have a right to be there. People want to be able to choose you and be able to trust you to get accurate and just good information.
Do you ever watch some of your first shows when you were?
Yes. Actually, a few days ago, I watched a show from 2020. It's a little bit different. We'll put it that way. A little bit slower, but yeah, no, it's definitely some leaps and bounds in 4 years.
Sure. And we see you in the studio all
Yeah.
the time on Channel 3 This Morning, but of course sometimes they let you out of the studio a little bit
They
and
do.
you get to do some reporting out in the field. Which do you prefer?
I like a healthy mix of both, and I think sometimes these days I'm not getting out as much as I should, but that's on me. That's not on management, of course. But yeah, I think getting out is great. It's great to get out and connect with people, and I think that also in turn makes you feel a little better or better connected with the community. But yeah, reporting, a healthy mix of reporting and anchoring. And I mean, I do a lot of studio interviews as well, so it's not like I'm not talking to anyone outside these walls, but yeah, it's a great experience.
And let's actually highlight a piece you
Yeah.
just did earlier. This is airing just before Halloween, and a couple of weeks ago you interviewed a giant pumpkin grower named Wilbur Horton. Is this the kind of story that you like doing?
Yeah, with stories like these, with these kind of lighter features, I really enjoy exploring people's passions. Because I think some people could see that, hey, this is just a guy growing a giant pumpkin, but in reality is, he's really passionate about this. It's a lot of work that goes into getting something that big, and it means a lot to them. It means a lot to a lot of people, especially as if you're walking through a county fair or a way off. People, I think the goal of this is for people to appreciate that work.
And when you were in Oregon, you
Yeah.
covered a lot of wildfires and the impact those
Yeah.
had on the community. Has that prepared you at all for covering some of the natural disasters that have hit Vermont in your time here?
Yeah, I think that absolutely, especially this recent round of flooding in late July. The wildfires in Oregon, that was really when I first started. That was actually my second or third week when I was in Oregon. So it was a lot to take in at the time, but it really prepared me for things down the line. We're a little more well versed. My time management is definitely a little bit better. And but yeah, it's definitely a tough topic and a very serious thing to consider when you're getting on TV.
And now that was maybe a comparison between
Yeah.
Oregon and here, but what do you think stands out as different from your previous stations and working here in Vermont?
Yeah, Vermont has a great sense of community. We have our Made in Vermont segment, and a lot of people put a lot of work, and again, to my point, which is people kind of following their passions, a lot of people, there's a sense of togetherness. Even in this month alone, we've reported on Vermonters heading down to Florida to help us. This is a state that's thousands of miles away from them. So I think there's definitely a good sense of heart and compassion in a state like this.
All right, and as your
Yeah.
coworker on the morning show,
Yeah.
I know the answer to this already because you're very vocal about it, but can you tell me a little bit about your favorite piece that you did as a reporter in your time working?
Yes, I did a story in Port Orford, Oregon, and there's a dinosaur park there. There's these either, I don't know if they're ceramic or concrete, but dinosaurs. And I had begged my news director forever to let me get down there, and we had a travel segment there. And I said this would be perfect. So my last few weeks, I finally got to go, and I had filmed it, or I'd shot it like Jurassic Park, and I had all these kitschy references and all that. I had a lot of fun. It was a great time.
And has anything stuck out to you in Vermont that you would love to follow up on and do a story about?
Yeah,
Not to put you on the spot, of course.
There's a lot of, again, I did the pumpkins recently as far as more some lighter stories, but Vermont's a very diverse state. I think sometimes people from the outside looking in look at Vermont as a vacation destination and that alone. But Vermont has, again, a lot of heart and a lot of history that, there's a lot of stories out there.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today, John.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to be here.
Absolutely, and that takes care of our program for today. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.